The fluorescent lights buzzed like angry hornets overhead, casting harsh shadows on the cluttered shelves of the bookstore's stockroom. I froze, my heart slamming against my ribs, as Scott dropped to his knees right there amid the stacks of unsold hardcovers and dog-eared paperbacks. "Wyatt," he whispered, his voice cracking like thunder in the silence. "I can't pretend anymore. This is killing me." And in that split second, with his hands trembling on my thighs, everything I'd buried for years clawed its way to the surface, raw and unforgiving. I never thought a rainy Tuesday in Seattle would unravel my life, but that's exactly what happened. Scott and I had been best friends since freshman year at the University of Washington, two misfits bonded over late-night coffee runs and endless debates about Kerouac versus Hemingway. He was the golden boy, broad-shouldered, with that easy grin and tousled blonde hair that made every girl in our dorm sigh. Me? I was the quiet one, the guy with the faded flannel shirts and a sketchbook full of half-finished portraits, hiding my sketches of him like they were contraband. We'd shared everything: dorm rooms, road trips down the Oregon coast, even that god-awful breakup he had with his high school sweetheart, Emily. But never this. Never the truth that simmered beneath our bro hugs and backslaps. The stockroom door had slammed shut behind us after closing time at Third Place Books, where we both worked part-time to pay off student loans. It was our ritual: inventory the returns, crack open a couple of IPAs from the break room fridge, and bullshit about life. Tonight, though, the air felt thicker, charged like the storm rolling in off Puget Sound. Scott had been off all week, snapping at customers, zoning out during shifts, his eyes red-rimmed like he'd been crying into his pillow. "What's eating you, man?" I'd asked earlier, stacking mysteries while he fiddled with a box of sci-fi imports. He'd shrugged, avoiding my gaze. "Just family stuff. Dad's on my case about law school applications again." His old man was a Seattle PD detective, all badge and bravado, the kind of guy who quoted Reagan at barbecues and expected his only son to follow in his footsteps. Scott had rebelled by majoring in literature, but the pressure was a noose tightening by the day. Now, here we were, surrounded by the musty scent of ink and dust, and he'd shattered the facade. His knees hit the concrete floor with a thud that echoed in my chest. I stared down at him, my hands hovering uselessly in the air, afraid to touch, afraid not to. "Scott, what the hell, get up." Someone could walk in. But he didn't. His blue eyes, usually sparkling with that irreverent humor, were stormy now, pleading. "Wyatt, listen. I think I'm in love with you." The words hung there, heavier than the rain pattering against the back window. My stomach dropped like I'd just crested the first hill on the Ferris wheel at the Fremont Fair. Love? From Scott? The straight-as-an-arrow jock who'd dated half the sorority row? It had to be a joke, a drunken confession born of too many shifts and too little sleep. I laughed, sharp and brittle, stepping back into a teetering pile of graphic novels. "Dude, you're wasted. Lay off the craft beer." But my voice wavered, betraying me. Because deep down, in the shadowed corners of my soul where I'd stashed my own secrets, I knew it wasn't a joke. I'd felt it too. The way my pulse quickened when his hand brushed mine passing a latte, the ache in my chest watching him laugh with someone else. I'd buried it under layers of denial, telling myself it was just bromance, just the Pacific Northwest melancholy messing with my head. Scott's face crumpled, and he grabbed my wrist, his grip ironclad. "I'm not drunk, and I'm not straight, Wyatt. I've been lying to everyone. To you, to Emily, to my folks, for years. Every time I look at you, it rips me apart." He rose slowly, like a man surfacing from drowning, and pulled me into a hug that wasn't brotherly at all. His breath was warm against my neck, smelling of hops and heartbreak. I stiffened, then melted, my arms wrapping around him as if he'd vanish if I let go. That night, we didn't kiss. We didn't cross that line. Instead, we talked, hours bleeding into the witching hour, spilling secrets like overturned ink bottles. He confessed the terror of his first crush on a teammate in high school football, the shame that choked him during prayers at his family's evangelical church in Bellevue. I admitted my own ghosts, the rejection from my conservative uncle in Spokane after he found my hidden copy of Giovanni's Room, the isolation of being the only out kid in my rural high school before I fled to Seattle for college. We were two fractured souls, piecing ourselves together in the dim glow of a bare bulb. By dawn, As the first gray light seeped through the blinds, we made a pact. "We take it slow," Scott said, his fingers lacing through mine. "No labels, no rushing. Just us, figuring this out." I nodded, my throat tight, believing, for the first time, that maybe, just maybe, we could rewrite our story without it ending in tragedy. But life in the Emerald City isn't scripted like a Nora Ephron rom-com. It's all coffee-fueled ambition and relentless rain, where dreams drown in the deluge if you're not careful. The next few weeks were a fever dream of stolen moments. Brushing shoulders in the stacks, texting memes at 2 a.m., a tentative handhold under the table at our favorite Capitol Hill diner. Scott's smiles came easier, his laugh fuller, and I felt alive in a way that scared me shitless. We'd hike Discovery Park on weekends, the salt air whipping our secrets into the wind, pretending the world beyond the tree line didn't exist. Then Emily called. She'd moved to Portland after graduation, but old flames flicker in the damp Pacific air. "Wyatt, is Scott okay?" He ghosted me after our last talk. Her voice was all honey and hurt over the phone, and guilt twisted in my gut like a knife. I mumbled something about him being busy, hung up, and confronted him that night in my cramped Ballard apartment, the Space Needle winking mockingly through the window. "She's reaching out," I said, pacing the threadbare rug. "You owe her the truth." Scott slumped on my futon, head in hands. "I know, but what if she tells everyone? My dad already thinks I'm a disappointment for ditching law school. This would kill him." I knelt beside him, echoing his vulnerability from that Stockroom night. "You're not a disappointment. You're brave as hell." Our eyes met, and for a heartbeat, the room shrank to just us. Then his phone buzzed, his father's number. He answered, voice steadying into that practice sun roll. "Yeah, Dad, applications are coming along. Promise." I watched him hang up, the mask slipping back into place, and something inside me fractured. How long could we hide? Seattle prided itself on rainbows and progress. Pride Month turned the streets into a riot of color, but for guys like us, from families where faggot was still a slur whispered at Thanksgiving, coming out was a grenade with the pin half pulled. The first crack came at work. Our manager, Lena, a no-nonsense dyke with a sleeve of tattoos and a zero-tolerance policy for bullshit, pulled me aside after a customer complained about inappropriate whispering in the cafe. "Wyatt, you and Scott seem close lately. Everything good?" Her eyes were kind but probing, and I flushed, stammering denials. She nodded, but the seed was planted. That night, over pho at a hole-in-the-wall in the International District, Scott unloaded. I saw the way she looked at us, like we're some scandal waiting to drop. He stabbed at his noodles, frustration etching lines around his mouth. "Maybe we should cool it. Just until I sort my head." My chopsticks clattered to the bowl. Cool it. After everything. The restaurant's chatter faded, replaced by the roar in my ears. You don't get to drop this bomb and then bail when it gets real. It's not bailing, it's protecting us. His voice rose, drawing stares from the family at the next table. "You think I want to lose you? But my dad's got eyes everywhere. He knows people at the station who shop here." I shoved back from the table, rain-slick streets calling me out into the storm. "Protecting us? Or protecting your perfect little lie?" The door slammed behind me, and I walked home alone, the downpour soaking through my jacket, mirroring the flood inside. Days blurred into a Cold War. Shifts together were torture, polite nods over bestsellers, avoiding the stockroom like it was cursed ground. My sketches piled up, all of him. Scott laughing in the sun, Scott lost in thought by the sound, Scott on his knees. I burned them one night in my sink, the flames licking up his face like accusations. Emily showed up unannounced a week later, all wide-eyed concern and Portland chic, cornering Scott in the break room. I overheard from the hall. "Baby, talk to me. Wyatt said you're struggling." Her voice was a siren's call, pulling at the old Scott, the one who'd proposed to her in a heartbeat after prom, ring from his grandma's estate. He hesitated, then, "It's over. For good." Silence, then her gasp. "Is it him? Wyatt?" The world tilted. I backed away, heart pounding, fleeing to the alley behind the store. Betrayal? No, truth. But it stung like salt in a wound. When Scott found me later, chain smoking under the dumpster, he looked wrecked. She guessed. I didn't confirm, but, "God, Wyatt, I'm sorry." We patched it with apologies and takeout Thai, but the fracture lingered. Whispers started at work. Lena's knowing glances, a cashier's snide, fairy tale mutter. Then Scott's dad called him in for a man-to-man. Over beers at a sports bar in Pioneer Square, the old man laid it out. Son, Emily's folks mentioned something. You messing around with that artsy kid? It's not right. Real men build families, not whatever this is. Scott came home to me. Our first official sleepover, reeking of microbrews and rage. He called you a phase. A goddamn phase. He punched the wall, knuckles splitting, and I bandaged them in silence, the intimacy of care bridging the gap. But secrets fester in the damp. 2 weeks later, the bomb detonated. We'd planned a weekend getaway to the San Juans, ferry to Orcas Island, cabin by the sea, a reset button. En route, Scott's phone lit up with a text from an unknown number, a screenshot of us, hand in hand at the diner, time-stamped by some busybody with a smartphone. Tell Dad, or I will. Family first. Uncle Ray. Scott's face drained of color. Uncle Ray, the family enforcer, brother to his dad, a real estate shark who'd always eyed Scott as the heir apparent. Betrayal from blood, gayer than any pride flag. He must have followed us, Scott whispered, the ferry's horn blaring like Judgment Day. I gripped the railing, Salish sea churning below. What now? We run. Fight. He turned to me, eyes fierce. We fight. Together. But doubt not at me. Was this love, or just two scared kids clinging to driftwood? Back in Seattle, the storm hit full force. Scott's dad showed up at the bookstore, badge gleaming under his jacket, cornering me in the poetry section. Kid, stay away from my boy. He's got a future, wife, kids, the works. You're poison. His words were venom, laced with that blue-collar bigotry that passes for tough love in Tacoma suburbs. I quit on the spot, Lena's protests fading as I stormed out. Scott found me at my apartment, packing a duffel for God knows where. Wyatt, don't. We can fix this. Fix what? Your family's vendetta? Tears burn my eyes, hot and unbidden. I love you, Scott, but I won't be your dirty secret. He dropped to his knees again, not in the stockroom, but on my scuffed hardwood, the city lights mocking us through the blinds. Then marry this mess with me. Come out, loud and proud. I'll tell them all, Dad, Uncle Ray, the whole damn world. The proposal hung there, not with a ring, but with raw vulnerability. My heart warred. Fear versus forever. In that moment, I saw our future, parades down Broadway, a life built on coffee and compromise, or ashes if we folded. I pulled him up, our embrace fierce. Okay, but we do it our way. The coming out was a bonfire. Scott posted on Facebook first, a photo of us at the waterfront, caption, "This is my heart. Meet Wyatt." The backlash was biblical. His dad disowned him over voicemail. "You're no son of mine." Uncle Ray emailed Bible verses. Emily sent flowers with a note. "Hurt, but happy for you." Friends rallied. Lena threw an impromptu coming-out party at the store, rainbow cupcakes, and all. But the real climax crashed like a rogue wave. A month later, at a family barbecue in Bellevue, Scott's olive branch to his mom, who still baked his favorite apple pie. We arrived hand in hand. His dad loomed by the grill, face thunderous. "This ends now," he growled, shoving a folder at Scott. Photos, texts, even a private investigator's report. "I hired someone. Proof you're ruining your life." Betrayal doubled down. His own father, playing detective. Scott's mom gasped, hand to mouth. The backyard fell silent, relatives frozen like statues. "You spied on us." Scott's voice broke, the boy in him surfacing. "For what? To control me?" His dad puffed up. "To save you. This abomination. It's not God's plan." I stepped forward, voice steady despite the quake inside. "With all due respect, sir, love isn't a crime. It's the only plan that matters." The argument escalated, shouts echoing off the manicured lawn, pie cooling untouched. Scott's mom intervened, tears streaming. "Enough. He's my son, not your soldier." She hugged him, whispering apologies, and in that fracture, the family teetered. We left amid slammed doors, driving back to Seattle in silence, the Olympics silhouetted against the sunset. "I'm sorry," Scott murmured, hand on my knee, "for dragging you into this." I squeezed his fingers. "I'd walk through fire for you. But what now?" He smiled, weary but real. Now, we build our own family. Months blurred, therapy sessions in a cozy Belltown office, job hunts landing me at a graphic design firm, Scott interning at a nonprofit for LGBTQ youth. His dad sent a letter eventually, stiff, apologetic in that cop way. I was wrong. Doors open when you're ready. We visited for Christmas, tentative truce over eggnog. His mom's embrace warmer than the fire. 1 year to the day from the stockroom. On that misty waterfront, Scott got down on one knee again, this time with a simple silver band, engraved with our story. Rain misted our faces as I said yes, the city our witness. Life's not a straight line, not in America where progress marches with pitchforks at its heels. We've got scars, nights when doubt creeps in, echoes of slurs in our dreams. But in the quiet, with Scott's head on my chest, listening to the rain tap our window like applause, I know, love isn't the absence of storm. It's dancing in it, together. We moved to a tiny house in Fremont, trolls and indie shops our quirky kingdom. I sketch openly now, portraits of us growing old, gray hair and laugh lines. Scott reads aloud from Whitman on Sundays, his voice weaving us into leaves of grass. And sometimes, in the stockroom of our memories, I remember that night. The knees, the confession, the beginning. It changed everything, not with fireworks, but with the steady burn of two hearts refusing to dim. In the end, it's not about the betrayals or the battles won. It's the humanism in choosing grace over grudge, vulnerability over armor. Scott taught me that. And in his eyes, every dawn, I see home. The ring felt foreign on my finger at first, cool and unyielding, like a promise I wasn't sure I deserved. Scott slid it on during that waterfront proposal, his hands steady despite the tremble in his voice, and I stared at it under the pier lights, wondering if this was real or just another Seattle mirage. Beautiful until the fog rolled in. We'd come so far from that stockroom confessional, but the road ahead twisted with shadows I couldn't ignore. My own family, scattered across the dry expanse of eastern Washington, loomed like thunderheads on the horizon. Mom had been supportive in her quiet way when I came out over FaceTime last year. Honey, as long as you're happy. But Dad? He was a wheat farmer, Bible on the nightstand, the kind of man who voted red and prayed for rain. Inviting them to the wedding felt like juggling lit dynamite. Scott sensed my unease that night. As we walked back to our car, the Salish sea whispering secrets to the shore. Penny for your thoughts? He bumped my shoulder, that boyish grin cutting through my fog. I held up my hand, the band catching the sodium glow. This, us, what if they bail? Or worse, show up with pamphlets on choosing straight. He stopped, pulling me into a hug that smelled of salt and his cedar cologne. Then we love them anyway, from afar if we have to. His words were simple, but they anchored me, a reminder that our love wasn't fragile glass. It was tempered steel, forged in that stockroom fire. Wedding planning became our new battlefield, a mix of joy and absurdity that only the Pacific Northwest could deliver. We opted for a small ceremony at Gasworks Park, the old gasification plant's skeletal towers our rustic altar, wildflowers and fairy lights turning industrial decay into something poetic. Lena officiated, her tattooed arms waving like a conductor's baton, and our friends filled the grassy hill. College buddies with craft beers, bookstore regulars toasting with kombucha. No family drama scripted, or so we thought. The invitations went out in spring, cherry blossoms dusting the streets like confetti. Mom RSVP'd yes, with a note about baking pies. Dad, silence. Then a curt email. Won't be making it. Work's busy. Congrats. Scott squeezed my shoulder when I read it aloud. His own reconciliation with his folks still fresh. Awkward Thanksgivings where his dad grunted over turkey, avoiding eye contact, but showing up nonetheless. Give him time, Scott said. But time felt like the enemy, ticking toward our July date with the inevitability of high tide. As summer crept in, humidity clinging to the city like a bad hangover, the misunderstandings piled up like unread manuscripts. Scott's new job at the youth center had him late most nights, counseling kids fresh out of the closet, their stories mirroring our own. I'd wait up, sketching by lamplight, but resentment brewed, petty at first, then sharp. You're married to the cause now. I snapped one evening, over cold takeout pad thai. When do we get you back? He looked gutted, fork pausing midair. Wyatt, these kids. They're us, 10 years ago. Lost, scared. If I can. I know. I cut in, shame flooding me. I'm proud of you. Just. Miss you. We made up in bed, not with passion but with tangled limbs and whispered sorries. The kind of intimacy that rebuilds bridges burned in haste. But the real rift cracked open at the bachelor party, or what passed for one in our crowd. A low-key bar crawl in Capitol Hill, rainbow flags snapping in the breeze, shots of something artisanal and overpriced. Scott's cousin Jake showed up, the black sheep of the family, tattooed, pierced, and unapologetically queer, who'd flown in from Portland to represent the fun side. Beers flowed, stories escalated, and Jake, 3 whiskeys deep, dropped the bomb. Heard your old man's hired a PI again. Digging into Wyatt's past, some high school drama. The bar noise faded to a buzz. Scott's face hardened, jaw clenching like it did in the stockroom that first night. What? My dad. Jake shrugged, lighting a smoke despite the no-smoking sign. Overheard him on the phone at Easter. Said he needs leverage if things go south with the wedding. Leverage. The words slithered like a snake, evoking that folder of photos from the barbecue. Betrayal's echo, louder this time. I laughed it off later, back in our Fremont nest, but sleep evaded me. It's nothing. I lied, staring at the ceiling fan's lazy spin. Paranoid cop, Dad being. Dad. Scott rolled toward me, breath warm. If he hurts you, You'll what? Arrest him. We chuckled, but the undercurrent pulled strong. Deep down, I knew. Families don't heal linear. They scar, they suppurate, they surprise. The week before the wedding, Mom arrived, train from Spokane, her sensible suitcase stuffed with Tupperware of rhubarb crisp. Dad stayed home, excuse of harvest season, but her eyes held apology enough for both. We toured the city, Pike Place fish tossing, a ferry to Bainbridge for lavender farms, her arm linked in mine like when I was small. He's trying, Wyatt. Watches your sketches online, says you're talented, even if you won't admit it. Her voice cracked on the wharf, gulls wheeling overhead. Loves you in his way. I hugged her tight, the space needle piercing the sky like a question mark. That enough, Mom? For now, she whispered. Build your life. Let him catch up. The rehearsal dinner was intimate. Our backyard, strung with Edison bulbs, Lena grilling veggie kebabs while Scott's mom fussed over salads. Jake regaled us with tales of his latest tattoo parlor drama, diffusing tension like a pro. Then Scott's dad pulled up in his unmarked cruiser, uninvited, a 6-pack of Rainier dangling from his fist. The air thickened, laughter dying like a snuffed candle. Thought I'd drop by, he grunted, eyes sliding over me like oil on water. Scott stiffened beside the grill. Dad, now's not. Just a minute, son. He clapped Scott's shoulder, too hard, then fixed me with that interrogator's stare. Wyatt, a word. We stepped to the fence, twilight bleeding into dusk, the neighborhoods hum a distant drone. Look, he started, voice low. I ain't here to fight, but I did some checking. Your uncle, that one from Spokane, says you caused a scene back in high school. Blackmail, some kid's reputation ruined. True, my blood iced. Uncle Harlan, the bitter one who'd outed me to the family after finding my book, twisting my coming out into a scandal. The scene was me defending a bullied classmate from jocks, ending in a fist fight and whispers of fairy vigilante. Misunderstanding metastasized over years, Harlan's venom painting me as predator. That's bullshit, I said, calm as lake water. Ask my mom. Or better, ask me. He scoffed, cracking a beer. Families lie. I know truth when I see it. Stay straight with my boy, or I'll bury you. Rage boiled, but I swallowed it, turning back to the party. Scott met me halfway, reading my face. What did he say? Nothing worth repeating. But the seed of doubt sprouted. Would this poison our roots? The wedding day dawned misty, the kind of Seattle summer where clouds hug the sound like lovers. Gasworks Park buzzed softly, friends in linen suits, wild rose garlands arching the gazebo. I waited in a converted silo, heart hammering, Lena adjusting my tie with maternal fuss. You ready, kid? Scared shitless, I admitted, glancing at my reflection, flannel vest over a crisp shirt, boots scuffed from hikes. But yeah, the ceremony was poetry in motion. Scott walked the path first, his grin splitting the clouds, blonde hair windswept. Vows we wrote ourselves. Mine about the stockroom. You on your knees, handing me my heart back. His, in every storm, you're my shelter. Rings exchanged, kiss under cheers, soft, lingering, sealing us. Then the reception, picnic blankets, acoustic guitar, strumming indigo girls, cake layered with marionberries. Mom danced with Scott, her laughter rare and bright. Jake cornered his uncle by the cooling towers. Back off, Ray. This family's evolving. Words carried on the breeze, and I saw the old man deflate, beer forgotten. But climax crested as dusk fell. Dad's truck rumbled into the lot. Unannounced, dust caked from the drive. He stepped out in his Sunday flannel, hat in hand, eyes scanning the revelry like a hawk. Mom gasped beside me. He came. Scott nudged me forward. Go. We're right here. Dad approached slow, gravel crunching, stopping short of the blankets. Wyatt. His voice was gruff, hands twisting his hat brim. Couldn't miss it. Harvest can wait. Emotions collided. Anger, relief, the ache of years unspoken. You hired a PI? I blurted, voice cracking. Dug into my past like dirt. He winced, glancing at the crowd. Harlan fed me lies. Thought I was protecting everyone. But seeing you too. He nodded at Scott, laughing with Lena. Reminds me of your ma and me, young and foolish. I was wrong. Proud of you, son. The hug was awkward, stiff arms, back slaps, but real. Tears pricked as he pulled back. Now where's the cake? Farmers gotta eat. The night spun on, dances under stars, toasts slurring into sentiment. Scott and I slipped away at midnight, to the lakeside path, hands linked. Your dad's a softy under that scowl, he teased. I laughed, pulling him close. Took a village. But worth it. Honeymoon was a cabin on the Ho-Rain Forest, Olympic Peninsula's emerald heart. Moss-draped trees whispering ancient lullabies, the Sol Duc River rushing like our pulse. We hiked hand in hand. No cell service to intrude. Just the crunch of ferns underfoot and Scott's voice reading trail signs with mock gravity. Nights by the fire, we'd talk futures. Adopting someday. Maybe a rescue dog named Kerouac. A garden of heirloom tomatoes in our Fremont yard. It felt idyllic, a bubble of us against the world. But even paradise has leaks. An hour sprang from a letter waiting when we returned. Creased envelope in our mailbox, postmarked Bellevue. Scott slid it open over morning coffee, his face paling as he scanned the pages. It's from Dad. He's sick. Prostate cancer, stage 3. Wants me there. Now. The mug slipped from my hand, splashing dark brew across the counter. Guilt crashed in, his father's gruff acceptance at the wedding, the tentative thaw, now overshadowed by mortality. Of course you go, I said, wiping the spill, my voice steadier than my heart. Take the week. I'll hold the fort. But Scott shook his head, crumpling the letter. We go together. No more hiding behind walls. His eyes, those blue beacons, held resolve, but I saw the flicker. Fear of relapse, of old wounds reopening. The drive to Bellevue was a silent gauntlet, I-90 sprawl giving way to suburban sprawl, evergreens thinning to manicured lawns. Scott's childhood home loomed unchanged. 2-story colonial, flagpole with the stars and stripes snapping crisp. His mom met us at the door, apron dusted with flour, hugging Scott fierce before turning to me. Wyatt, thank you for coming. He's gruff as ever. Inside, the air smelled of hospital antiseptic under pot roast, a nurse's kit on the coffee table. Dad, Mr. Harlan now, formality shed, sat in his recliner, thinner than at the wedding, but eyes sharp. Boys. He nodded, gesturing to the couch. No warmth, but no venom either. A man stripped to essentials. Scott dove in, questions tumbling. Treatments, prognosis, the works. Harlan answered flat, Cop's dispatch. Radiation starting Monday, odds 50-50. Then pause. Need to clear the air? That PI bullshit? Desperation. Afraid of losing you two. Whatever. But losing you to this. He tapped his chest. That's real. Scott's throat bobbed. You could have just talked. Like a dad. Harlan's laugh rasped. Talk. I'm a McAllister. We grunt. But his gaze softened on me. Wyatt, that high school yarn Harlan spun? I dropped it after your ma set me straight. You're good for him. Better than I ever was. The confession hung, A bridge extended over chasms. I nodded, words failing, as Scott gripped my hand under the Afghan. Dinner followed. Awkward at first, forks scraping plates, then stories flowing. Scott's toddler tantrums, my sketches earning Harlan's gruff, "Not bad." By dessert, laughter edged in, pie slices vanishing. We stayed the week, rotating shifts. Mornings with Mom in the kitchen, rolling dough while she shared Harlan's courtship tales. Dances at the VFW, a proposal under the Space Needle. Afternoons, Scott and his dad in the garage, tinkering with an old Chevy, oil-streaked hands passing tools like olive branches. I'd join, sketching their profiles, capturing the hesitant camaraderie. One evening, rain lashing the windows, Harlan pulled me aside on the porch. "Cancer's a bastard. Makes you reckon." He lit a cigar, against doctor's orders, puffing slow. "I pushed law school, the wife thing, 'cause that's what built me. But you two? You're building something truer. Don't let go." I swallowed hard. "Won't. Promise." He clapped my shoulder, gentle, paternal. "Good man." The night before we left, Scott and Harlan talked deep into hours. Door cracked. I eavesdropped from the hall. Apologies for the disowning, the slurs, the silence. I was scared, Harlan admitted. Of not understanding. Of failing you. "You're not failing now," Scott said, voice thick. "That's enough." Back in Seattle, the rainforest's peace lingered, but reality reasserted. My design job ramped up, a big client pitch for a queer-owned coffee chain, deadlines blurring days. Scott threw himself into the center, a new program for rural LGBTQ kids launching, echoing his own path. Distance crept in again, not miles but minutes. Missed dinners, exhausted crashes without touch. The misunderstanding ignited over trivia night at the pub, our weekly ritual. I arrived late, sketches spilling from my bag, to find Scott at the bar with a colleague, tall, dark-haired, laughing too close. Jealousy flared, irrational but hot. "New friend," I quipped, sliding onto the stool. Scott blinked, sensing the edge. "Evan," from the center. "Wyatt meet." "Saved you a seat," Evan said, all charm, but his hand lingered on Scott's arm. Harmless? Maybe. In my head, it replayed Harlan's Leverage, Uncle Ray's screenshots, Betrayal's Ghost. We played, buzzed on IPAs, but my answers bombed, mind elsewhere. "Home," it erupted. "Who's Evan?" "Your type." Scott recoiled. "What the hell, Wyatt?" "Colleague. Straight, married." "You're spiraling." "Am I?" "After your dad's PI, the family digs. How do I know it's not history repeating?" Words poisoned, born of insecurity, the fear that our hard-won peace was glass. He paced, fury flashing. "You think I'd throw us away? After the stockroom, the wedding, the cancer talks? For what? A bar flirt?" I deflated, sinking to the couch. "I don't. I'm scared. Of losing you two. Normalcy. To them pulling you back." He knelt. Damn his knees and their symbolism, cupping my face. "Normalcy's overrated. You're my everything." The kiss was apology, fierce and forgiving, reaffirming vows. But the real storm brewed from without. A month later, the center's launch event. A gala at the Museum of History and Industry, suits and spotlights. We dressed sharp. Me in velvet blazer, Scott in tailored slacks that hugged just right. Speeches glowed, donors toasted, pride swelling as kids shared stories. A trans teen from Yakima, a bi kid from Tacoma, voices amplified. Then Jake texted, "Trouble. Uncle Ray at the door, with press. Says he's exposing something." Heart plummeting, we pushed through the crowd. Ray stood in the lobby, slick in Armani, a reporter from the PI, Seattle's rag of choice, notebook poised. "Scott McAllister, care to comment on your father's cover-up?" The PI files show Wyatt's high school involvement wasn't so innocent. Assault on a minor, perhaps more. Gasps rippled. Ray's grin was shark. "Family duty. Can't let cancer blind us to truth." Scott charged, me hauling him back. "You bastard. Dad's dying, and you pull this?" The reporter perked. "Dying? Source." I stepped up, voice steel. "Off record. Harlan's fighting cancer. And this clown's twisting old lies for headlines." To Ray, Harlan forgave. "You? Rot alone." Security ushered them out, but damage seeped. Whispers, stares. The gala limped on, but Scott's speech faltered, anger choking eloquence. Home, we collapsed, wine bottle emptying fast. Why? Scott raged, pacing. Ray's always hated me, jealous of Dad's favoritism. Now this. I pulled him down, holding tight. We fight back. Press release. Lawyer. Expose the real scandal. Family sabotage. Dawn brought resolve. We drafted together. Truth about the assault. Self-defense for a bullied friend. Harlan's reconciliation. Ray's grudge. The stranger ran it first. Indie cred amplifying. Backlash hit Ray. Disbarment whispers. Family shunning. Harlan called from chemo. Handled it. Proud. Climax passed, but scars lingered. Trust fragility. The cost of visibility. Yet in the quiet, Scott's head on my lap. Fingers tracing my ring. We healed. Fall painted Seattle in fire. Maples blazing along Aurora Avenue. Pumpkins stacking at every market stall. Harlan's treatments dragged. A marathon of nausea and hope. But he rallied. Even joining us for a Seahawks game. Hollering from the stands with a foam finger dwarfing his foreport. Touchdown for the queers, he bellowed, earning laughs and a beer spill. Progress, incremental as tide pools filling. Our life settled into rhythm. My designs gracing billboards for local pride events. Scott's program expanding to online support for isolated rural folks. We adopted Kerouac, a scruffy mutt from the shelter, all wagging tail and sloppy kisses, and weekends blurred into hikes on Rattlesnake Ledge, picnic baskets bulging with mom's pie recipes. Romance wove through mundane. Notes in lunch bags, knees optional today. Slow dances in the kitchen to Coltrane on vinyl. But depth demands descent, and ours plumbed when Scott's mom called one crisp October morning. He's gone into remission. But he wants to talk. Alone with you, Wyatt. Curiosity piqued. I drove to Bellevue solo, leaves crunching under tires. Harlan waited on the porch, bundled in a Seahawks blanket, thermos steaming. Sit. He grunted, pouring coffee black as his mood. No preamble. Wrote a letter. For after I'm gone. But need to say it now. He handed me pages, handwriting shaky but deliberate. I read in silence. Regrets stacked like cordwood, pushing Scott into molds that cracked. The PI as panic, slurs born of his own father's bigotry. You gave him wings, it ended. Thank you. Be his anchor. Tears blurred ink. Harlan. Save it. He waved, eyes misty. Just promise, no grudges. Life's too short for that shit. I promise. We sat then, watching traffic hum, a father-in-law and son forging quiet bond. Winter brought holidays, our first as husbands. Mom hosted in Spokane, Dad carving turkey with uncharacteristic jokes, toasting to unconventional families. Ray was persona non grata, his empire crumbling under lawsuits from his smear. Justice, poetic and cold. New Year's, we rang in at the pier, fireworks exploding over the sound, Scott's arms around me. Resolutions, he murmured. More of this, I said, kissing him salty. Less hiding. Spring thawed secrets we'd buried. During a center retreat in the Cascades, Scott confessed over campfire. A college hookup with a roommate, guilt-fueled and fleeting, pre-Stockroom. Thought it made me bi, not gay. Freaked me out. I stirred marshmallows, processing. Why now? Full circle. No more shadows. His vulnerability cracked me open. My own omission. Therapy uncovering buried attraction to him since dorm days. Sketched, but unspoken. We laughed, relieved. Misunderstandings dissolved in Esmo Ray's goo. Climax echoed in summer's heat wave. A freak scorcher baking the city. Harlan's remission party at their backyard. Burgers sizzling, kids from the center splashing in an inflatable pool. Laughter peaked, then shattered. A call from the hospital. Relapse. Aggressive. We raced, Scott white-knuckled on the wheel. ICU was sterile hell. Beeps, tubes, Harlan frail as paper. Knew it, he rasped, gripping Scott's hand. But no regrets. Days blurred. Vigils, Mom's prayers, our hands intertwined at bedside. One night, Harlan pulled us close. You too. My legacy. Love hard. Fight fair. Eyes closed, breath stilled. A peaceful exit, rain tapping the window like farewell. Funeral was standing room. Cops in dress blues, center kids with signs, heroes wear rainbows. Eulogy fell to Scott, voice steady. He learned late, but loved fierce. That's grace. Grief hollowed us. Nights curled on the couch, Kerouac nosing for comfort. But humanism bloomed in loss. A foundation in Harlan's name, scholarships for out youth. His letter, read at the will reading, sealed it. To Wyatt, the son I didn't deserve. Years folded. Our adoption of twins from the foster system. 2 boys, wide-eyed and resilient, filling our home with chaos and joy. Scott's book on queer family reconciliation hit shelves, dedication, to knees that changed everything. I illustrated the cover. Us on the waterfront, timeless. 1 anniversary, back in the stockroom. Now our private joke, sneaking in post-shift. We knelt together, laughing. Full circle, he said. Endless, I replied. Life's drama, conflicts that scar, betrayals that teach, misunderstandings that mend. In America's mosaic, flawed, fierce, we carved our niche. Not perfect, but profoundly ours. And in Scott's eyes, every dawn, I find a romance. 2 men, unbowed, loving loud.